Hey guys, welcome back. We are ready for chapter 3 of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe today. You may notice my surroundings are different. Every day I come to you, I'm coming to you from a different location in my house. That is because I'm a mom and I am quarantined with 3 kids. So I have to come to you from wherever I can find a quiet place at the moment. It's just like at school, only now my house is my classroom. So I've got students in the classroom. So if there are interruptions, you guys get it. You've been in the classroom. You know what it's like when there are other kids in the classroom who have questions and have needs, and the teacher has to tend to those. Same thing here at my house. So, if you hear me get interrupted today, it is what it is. We'll deal with it and move on, right? All right. So, today we are picking up at chapter 3. And when we left off, Lucy had her encounter in Narnia with Mr. Tumnus, and she had gotten away from his sneaky ploy to lull her to sleep and give her over to the White Witch. He felt very remorseful about that. She forgave him, and she went back through the wardrobe, back to her brothers and sister. And that's where we're picking up today. So, if you have your book, grab it and open it to chapter 3. And if you don't have a book, just listen along. Chapter 3, Edmund and the Wardrobe. Lucy ran out of the empty room, into the passage, and found the other 3. It's all right, she repeated. I've come back. What on earth are you talking about, Lucy? Asked Susan. Why, said Lucy in amazement, haven't you all been wondering where I was? So you've been hiding, have you? Said Peter. Poor old Lou, and nobody noticed. You'll have to hide longer than that if you want people to start looking for you. But I've been away for hours and hours, said Lucy. The others all stared at one another. Batty, said Edmund, tapping his head. Quite batty. What do you mean, Lou? Asked Peter. What I said, answered Lucy. It was just after breakfast when I went into the wardrobe, and I've been away for hours and hours and had tea, and all sorts of things have happened. Don't be silly, Lucy, said Susan. We've only just come out of that room a moment ago, and you were there then. She's not being silly at all, said Peter. She's just making up a story for fun, aren't you, Lou? And why shouldn't she? No, Peter, I'm not, she said. It's a magic wardrobe. There's a wood inside it, and it's snowing, and there's a faun and a witch, and it's called Narnia. Come and see. The others did not know what to think, but Lucy was so excited that they all went back with her into the room. She rushed ahead of them, flung open the door of the wardrobe, and cried, Now, go in and see for yourselves. Why, you goose, said Susan, putting her head inside and pulling the fur coats apart. It's just an ordinary wardrobe. Look, there's the back of it. Then everyone looked in and pulled the coats apart, and they all saw, Lucy herself saw, a perfectly ordinary wardrobe. There was no wood and no snow, only the back of the wardrobe with hooks on it. Peter went in and rapped his knuckles on it to make sure that it was solid. A jolly good hoax, Lou, he said as he came out again. You've really taken us in, I must admit. We half believed you. But it wasn't a hoax at all, Lucy said. Really and truly. It was all different a moment ago. Honestly, it was, I promise. Come, Lou, said Peter, that's going a bit far. You've had your joke. Hadn't you better drop it now? Lucy grew very red in the face and tried to say something, though she hardly knew what she was trying to say, and burst into tears. For the next few days she was very miserable. She could have made it up with the others quite easily at any moment if she could have brought herself to say that the whole thing was only a story made up for fun. But Lucy was a very truthful girl, and she knew that she was really in the right, and she could not bring herself to say this. The others who thought she was telling a lie, and a silly lie too, made her very unhappy. The two elder ones did this without meaning to do it, but Edmund could be spiteful, and on this occasion he was spiteful. He sneered and jeered at Lucy and kept on asking her if she'd found any other new countries and other cupboards all over the house. What made it worse was that these days ought to have been delightful. The weather was fine, and they were out of doors from morning to night, bathing, fishing, climbing trees, and lying in the heather. But Lucy could not properly enjoy any of it, and so things went on until the next wet day. That day, when it came to the afternoon, and there was still no sign of a break in the weather, they decided to play hide and seek. Susan was it, and as soon as the others scattered to hide, Lucy went to the room where the wardrobe was. She did not mean to hide in the wardrobe, because she knew that would only set the others talking again about the whole wretched business. But she did want to have one more look inside it, for by this time she was beginning to wonder herself whether Narnia and the Faun had not been a dream. The house was so large and complicated and full of hiding places that she thought she would have time to have one look into the wardrobe and then hide somewhere else. But as soon as she reached it, she heard steps in the passage outside, and then there was nothing for it but to jump into the wardrobe and hold the door closed behind her. She did not shut it properly because she knew that it is very silly to shut oneself into a wardrobe, even if it is not a magic one. Now the steps she had heard were those of Edmund, and he came into the room just in time to see Lucy vanishing into the wardrobe. He at once decided to get into it himself, not because he thought it a particularly good place to hide, but because he wanted to go on teasing her about her imaginary country. He opened the door. There were the coats hanging up as usual, and a smell of mothballs, and darkness, and silence, and no sign of Lucy. She thinks I'm Susan come to catch her, said Edmund to himself, and so she's keeping very quiet in at the back. He jumped in and shut the door, forgetting what a very foolish thing this is to do. Then he began to feel about for Lucy in the dark. He had expected to find her in a few seconds, and was very surprised when he did not. He decided to open the door again and let in some light, but he could not find the door either. He did not like this at all, and began groping wildly in every direction. He even shouted out, "Lucy! Lou, where are you? I know you're here." There was no answer, and Edmund noticed that his own voice had a curious sound. Not the sound you expect in a cupboard, but a kind of open-air sound. He also noticed that he was unexpectedly cold, and then he saw a light. "Thank goodness," said Edmund. "The door must have swung open of its own accord." He forgot all about Lucy and went toward the light, which he thought was the open door of the wardrobe. But instead of finding himself stepping out into the spare room, he found himself stepping out from the shadow of some thick, dark fir trees into an open place in the middle of a wood. There was crisp, dry snow under his feet, and more snow lying on the branches of the trees. Overhead there was a pale blue sky, the sort of sky one sees on a fine winter day in the morning. Straight ahead of him he saw between the tree trunks the sun, just rising, very red and clear. Everything was perfectly still, as if he were the only living creature in that country. There was not even a robin or a squirrel among the trees, and the wood stretched as far as he could see in every direction. He shivered. He now remembered that he had been looking for Lucy, and also how unpleasant he had been to hear her about her imaginary country, which now turned out not to have been imaginary at all. He thought that she must be somewhere quite close, and so he shouted, "Lucy, Lucy, I'm here too, Edmund." There was no answer. "She's angry about the things I've been saying lately," thought Edmund, and though he did not like to admit that he had been wrong, he also did not much like being alone in this strange, cold, quiet place, so he shouted again. "I say, Lou, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I see now you were right all along. Do come out, make it Pax." Still, there was no answer. "Just like a girl," said Edmund to himself, "sulking somewhere, and won't accept an apology." He looked round him again and decided he did not much like this place, and had almost made up his mind to go home, when he heard, very far off in the wood, a sound of bells. He listened, and the sound came nearer and nearer, and at last there swept into sight a sledge drawn by 2 reindeer. The reindeer were about the size of Shetland ponies, and their hair was so white that even the snow hardly looked white compared with them. Their branching horns were gilded and shone like something on fire when the sunrise caught them. Their harness was of scarlet leather and covered with bells. On the sledge, driving the reindeer, sat a fat dwarf who would have been about 3 feet high if he had been standing. He was dressed in polar bear's fur, and on his head he wore a red hood with a long gold tassel hanging from its point. His huge beard covered his knees and served him instead of a rug. But behind him, on a much higher seat in the middle of the sledge, sat a very different person. A great lady, taller than any woman that Edmund had ever seen. She also was covered in white fur up to her throat, and held a long, straight golden wand in her right hand, and wore a golden crown on her head. Her face was white, not merely pale, but white like snow or paper or icing sugar, except for her very red mouth. It was a beautiful face in other respects, but proud and cold and stern. The sledge was a fine sight as it came sweeping toward Edmund, with the bells jingling and the dwarf cracking his whip and the snow flying up on each side of it. "Stop," said the lady, and the dwarf pulled the reindeer up so sharp that they almost sat down. Then they recovered themselves and stood champing their bits and blowing. In the frosty air, the breath coming out of their nostrils looked like smoke. "And what, pray, are you?" said the lady, looking hard at Edmund. My name's Edmund," said Edmund, rather awkwardly. He did not like the way she looked at him. The lady frowned. "Is that how you address a queen?" she asked, looking sterner than ever. "I beg your pardon, your majesty. I didn't know," said Edmund. "Not know the Queen of Narnia?" cried she. "Ha! You shall know us better hereafter. But I repeat, what are you?" "Please, your majesty," said Edmund, I don't know what you mean. I'm at school. At least I was. It's the holidays now." And that's the end of chapter 3. So, today, a couple of challenges or missions for you. The first challenge or mission is kind of a serious one. I want you to think about 2 of our main characters. We have Edmund and we have Lucy, and they are brother and sister. But like most siblings, they are very, very different. So, on a piece of paper, I want you to draw a line straight down the middle. And on one side, I want you to draw a picture of Lucy. And on the other side, I want you to draw a picture of Edmund. And then I want you to write the ways that they are alike and different. And as you're doing that, I kind of want you to think about your own siblings if you have them. How are you like your brothers or sisters? How are you not like your brothers and sisters? A lot of times we kind of get stuck on all the ways that we are different from our brothers or sisters, and we think of all the ways that that's not a good thing, but that can be a really great thing because God created each one of us very unique with our own special things inside that He has so that we can fulfill the plans that He has for each one of us. So those differences that we have, sometimes they may cause us to not get along and cause us to have some disagreements, but they have been given to us for a reason, and they're going to help you to do great things one day. So I want you to think about those things as you go forward. That's kind of your more serious challenge. And then your fun mission is play a fun game of hide and seek, just like the children were doing when Lucy and Edmund ventured back into the land of Narnia through the wardrobe. It was a rainy, yucky day, and they were stuck indoors, so they decided to play a game of hide and seek together. So go play some hide and seek. All right, guys. I hope that you are having a great time. I hope that you are studying hard while you are home. I hope that you are being kind and respectful to your families. My shirt today says pray. I hope you're remembering to pray for your friends, for your schoolmates, for our community, for our country, for our world, for all these people who are being affected by this virus, and by so many other things too. This is a great time for us to kind of hit pause and really spend some time in prayer for those around us in our world who need it. So spend some time praying, have fun, learn lots. We love you. God loves you more. See you tomorrow.